Or perhaps I should start with lessons learned from El Ade. What do you think have been some of those? There's been a lot of controversy around it. Some say it's been politicized. That report that we're still waiting for 2 years on. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, just like my colleague was saying, Somalia environment is very complicated. We have very many players in Somalia. And I think the idea is once it stabilizes, what is going to be my stake? And just like he said, we have the US that is doing its own thing, of course in collaboration, but at a very minimal level with the regional countries and AMISOM. The Somali people themselves have lost confidence in AMISOM. So generally you find that they are not really collaborating with AMISOM as was expected to be. Then number three, we have Muslim countries that are now moving into Somalia, but with very divergent interests. We have Egypt that is moving into Somalia. Turkey is already in Somalia. We hear United Arab Emirates is moving into Somaliland, the upper one. We have one that is moving into Puntland, and all these are coming with diverse interests. So the biggest problem with us as a region, I think, how do we then have our own interests as a region to ensure that we make sure that Somalia stabilizes for the sake of this region? And how do we maximize our closeness to the Somali nation to ensure that what we want happening in that region happens?
And how do we do that?
The problem is this. IGAD has been given the mandate to deal with regional issues on security.
Yes.
The problem with IGAD, we have Ethiopia, that has basically refused to hand over chairmanship of that organization for years. Somalia, Ethiopia and Sudan have issues, not Sudan, Uganda. So those interests that he was talking about, for as long as we don't regionalize our interests as nations and decide that this is what we want to do to make sure Somalia stabilizes, we're going to have a problem, because IGAD is where every country in the world goes through to deal with issues of regional security. Eastern Africa security issues.
All right, allow me to just throw a span in the works. Regionally, we need to think about a common strategy and a common approach to the war on terror. But then there's also a nationalist position. Like you say, everybody has their own national interests. Ethiopia, compared to Kenya, has suffered much fewer attacks, and you will correct me, perhaps, none. And Ethiopia has its troops in Somalia, so do we, and a number of the other contributing countries, Uganda, Burundi. So what is it that we can do on a national level that secures us here, so that even as we look regionally, then that, Kenyans need not suffer the bane of these attacks?
I was coming to that. I took a longer route.
Right.
Ethiopia is not an effective country in terms of national security.
Yeah.
We know now they're going through some turmoil because of the Oromia issue. But Ethiopia takes its national security very seriously. It does not condone corruption. It does not allow its officers to engage in matters outside professional military issues. I think our biggest problem in this country is that sometimes we mix politics with the military operations and national interests. And when you start mixing those, then it becomes very difficult even for our officers who are in Somalia to have a steadfast operational plan that is meant to secure this country, because from time to time you'll get some interferences from politics, a bit of corruption in what we do, a bit of selfish interests from the people who are supposed to make decisions, and therefore it complicates the matter even for our military. I think as a country, if we left this matter to the Commander-in-Chief, left it to the National Security Council and the department, the military itself, we'll see a lot of changes in what is happening in Somalia. And this also boils to the fact that even some of the things and the decisions we make as a country have an impact inside Somalia that are not necessarily for the interest of Kenya. So that, to me, will be an answer to what you're asking. And 2 years down the line, we don't seem to have learned much. The military has decided to do what it knows best, and we hope there'll be no interferences in what they're planning to do, what they've learned, and therefore we achieve our national interests and secure our country outside political interference.
And secure our borders, which is most important. Abdul Wahab, lessons